Hello, folks, and welcome. How are we doing, everybody? Welcome into the first introductory episode of No Free Squares. I'm your host, Jakob Sanderson, FF_RTDB. And in this show, we are going to talk DFS. We are especially going to talk about tournament DFS. All right, so let me just lay out a little bit about what we got going down over the course of this show and over the course of this show that we're going to do every Saturday night from week 1 until the rest of the regular season. All right, we're going to start off with a little bit of an overview of the slate. We're just going to talk about some general sort of strategy, and especially I write an article every week for Player Profiler called the Pareto Principles, where I look at things from sort of a top line strategy point of view, especially introducing some economic concepts, introducing some game theory concepts into how we do that lineup construction. And I'm going to talk about that stuff a little bit in this show. I'm going to do a bit of an overview with that. And then we're going to break down sort of some of the top line games into this week, how we make sure that we're able to set ourselves up in a really positive construction, really positive, unique construction. So we're going to get through all of that. I definitely want to see folks in the chat if you have any specific questions on who you'd rather play, construction ideas, contest selection, anything like that. By all means, let's make sure that that we hear you out there. Otherwise, I'm going to see you in just 1 second, and we're going to kick off episode 1 of No Free Squares coming right up. All right, and with that, welcome back to No Free Squares. All right, let's start off with a little bit of an overview of the slate. And the biggest thing is that it is week 1, right? Week 1, we know, is when prices are most inefficient. And what does that mean? How can we benefit from that? I think that one of the most obvious ways that people look at inefficient pricing from week 1 is they look at guys where it's like, oh, this is really obvious. You know, Marquez Callaway, he's the Saints wide receiver 1. He's only $3,400 on DraftKings. Absolutely jam him in. T. Higgins, $4,700. Absolutely jam him in. And in cash games, you know, you're probably right. Those are the guys that you really want to make sure that you're targeting. But when we're talking tournaments, you have to be, I think, a little bit more inventive about your mindset on that. You can't just go in and just take, okay, who do I think is going to outscore the projections? Because you're not playing against the house, right? You're not playing blackjack. You're playing poker. You're playing Hold'em. So you really need to beat the guys that are at the table with you and make sure that you're able to have more unique lineup constructions where, yeah, maybe those guys are the best plays. But if they're 20% rostered, you got all of these entourage of folks hanging out with you, going to the concert, having a good time. You don't want that. You want to be flying solo. If there's a guy who's going to get 25 points at $3,000, your benefit is commensurate with how few people have that play combined with who you do. So that's one of the big things I talked about in my article this week is when everybody's mispriced, people are going to jump out to the obvious cases, but we don't know anything. We don't frickin' know anything at all about who is actually priced efficiently and who isn't, because it's DFS. It's a 1 week sample. It's a 1 week sample in an extremely event-driven game. So do we even know who the best plays are? No, because we've been off this entire offseason. Will the best plays be the ones who actually score the most points? Probably not, because some random guy could have a 50-yard touchdown, and all of a sudden that's the guy that you have to flip the slate on its head. So it really is about looking at opportunities that might be underpriced, but especially doing so in a way that your competition is not doing. Other thing I talked about a lot in my article this week, and we'll get into this a little bit more when I get into the games, but there's all these different factors into the games in terms of, okay, what makes this game high owned? What makes this game high over under, right, in terms of Vegas? Well, one of the things that I care the least about, frankly, is defensive efficiency, because what we know about defensive efficiency is that it is extremely, extremely variable year to year. Josh Hermsmeyer of 538, he studied it, and the correlation year to year of defensive efficiency is 0.09. 0.09. So if I see people like the Washington Chargers game is one we're going to talk about a little bit later. If people are scared off of that game or of other good games between good offenses, people that have other strong fundamentals as to why it's a good play, and they're scared off because they think that the defenses are going to be good, Maybe. We don't know. We don't know what defense are going to be good. What does carry over? Offensive efficiency actually carries over at twice the rate of defense efficiency, as well as there's a higher correlation year to year between coaching tendencies such as run pass ratio and pace, right? Those are fundamental elements of what we want to see when we want to shoot out. We want teams that are going to play fast, and we want teams that are going to play pass happy, because that's just the most efficient way to get points going in a shootout environment where it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So that's sort of our brief overview of my article, some of the things that I talked about today. And specifically now, I want to get into the games. I want to get into the games this week. And again, if you're in the chat, if you have any questions from a macro strategy level, awesome. Just want to know about my take on a specific player this week? That's awesome. We'll do that too. Whatever you want, come in the chat, ask your questions, and we will get to those throughout, especially now as we're sort of shifting into the game. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to sort of categorize these games between good games that I'm going to be under the field on for a variety of different reasons, not very good games at all, and then what are some of the games that I'm really going to be attacking the most. So specifically as we go down, the games that I'm fading a little bit, not because they're bad, but just because they're going to be so highly owned, where I think that you really have to come up with unique ways to play them. I think that the chalk games this week, we start off with Arizona, Tennessee, and then Green Bay, New Orleans, Browns and Chiefs, and probably Eagles and Falcons. I think those are the four that I think everyone is going to be all over. Let's first talk about Tennessee and Arizona. That game, super fun game. I mean, two of the highest paced teams in the league last year. Maybe some concerns about Tennessee slowing down now with the new offensive coordinator. That seems very, very possible that they could potentially do that. That's one of the reasons why maybe I'm not quite as all on that game. And then you also look on the Arizona side, right? We know how fast they're going to be with Cliff Kingsbury. And both these defenses are pretty questionable. Tennessee's defense was absolutely atrocious last year. Arizona's secondary is super beat up. I think they might have the worst secondary in the NFL right now. Here's the issue with this game. The pieces that you play are very obvious. And it's going to be hard, I think, to do constructions of this game that won't just be absolutely dusted and chalk, right? On one side, it's obviously Tannehill, it's Brown, it's Henry, and it's Julio. Maybe Julio ends up being sort of a high single digits rostership percentage play, but I think that really you're going to see a lot of rostership consolidate around A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Julio Jones. And then on the other side, I mean, it's Hopkins, clearly. And I think even Chase Edmonds actually might be pretty chalky just because he is so cheap on DraftKings all the way down to 4,600, especially on a full PPR site. I could see a lot of people going for Edmonds. So what do? Say you want to play this game, okay? And really this is what tournament DFS is all about. It's about trying to look at games that you want to play, look at players that you want to play. And you have to be really intentional about playing them in the most efficient way possible for what their value is. Because it's all about just trying to get that unique roster lineup that has as much ceiling as possible and where you're the only one benefiting from it. That's really what it's all about in tournament DFS. And so Tennessee, Arizona, I think the guys that I'm most interested in are maybe like AJ Green. I've seen Rondale Moore get a lot of buzz this week. I think a lot of people are going to roster him as a secondary option in Arizona. I mean, straight up, I would rather play Rondale Moore than AJ Green. So I don't have a problem with that. But AJ Green is probably a guy who I think people will not be excited to play. And why would you be excited to play him, right? I mean, he's AJ Green. Of course, you're not going to be excited to play AJ Green ever. But this is a really beatable matchup. He's going to be, I think, locked into running pretty much every route. I'm not 100% sure what Kirk's role is going to be. I'm not 100% sure what Rondale's role is going to be. I'm quite sure what Green's role is going to be. He's going to be playing outside receiver. And he's going to run pretty much every route. So I'm into him down at $3,800 on DraftKings. If I was playing Tennessee, I think it would just be Julio for me. I'm not really interested in Ferkser until we see how that usage is. And then I might be interested in Henry, actually, especially on DraftKings. I think that the running backs that are going to be most attractive to folks are probably Kamara, McCaffrey, and then Cook. And so I think that could leave a window where you might not be able to fit two of those high-priced guys in. And I think Henry is a guy not catching passes in a game where everybody wants to play these pass catchers. What up, Michael, in the chat? What up, Michael? Where everybody wants to play all these pass catchers. Maybe people don't want to work Henry into their stacks. And you probably shouldn't want to, right? Like a Derrick Henry game script
is a slower game script, right? You're not really, you want to bank on 50-yard touchdown passes to AJ Brown if you're stacking this game, not Derrick Henry, slogging his way through the defense. But if I'm kind of fading this game and I'm cognizant of the fact that it is a good game, I just don't want to play because of rostership. I think Derrick Henry is a good road to go. So that's probably where I'm going to look. Green Bay, New Orleans. I think that this game actually is just kind of not that good. I think that there's a legitimate chance that New Orleans is bad, especially on offense. I think they could potentially be quite bad on offense. It's a team that has Alvin Kamara, fantastic talent, of course. Jameis Winston, really a question mark. And then you've got Marquez Callaway as your lead wide receiver, who I love. Everyone knows I love Marquez Callaway. But he's your lead wide receiver. Deontay Harris, he's like a gadget player. Little Jordan Humphrey, who I'm still not sure if he exists or if you just go into a video game and you make up a name and it spits out Little Jordan Humphrey. Troutman apparently is playing. Jawan Johnson is still going to be involved. It's just, what if New Orleans just sucks, right? And if they suck, then it's very conceivable that Kamara has a good game, but not one where it's like, oh my God, I had to play Alvin Kamara this week, right? Like if a 9K running back has 25 points, you can totally survive that. The Green Bay side, New Orleans being bad hurts them too, right? Whenever you want to stack these games, you want games where both sides are shooting out. And in the case of the Green Bay Packers, they might have some game script concerns where they'll be fine. They might get theirs in the first half, but the Saints do have a good defense. So I'm not even 100% sure they're going to race out to a lead. And then they might just sit on the ball. Like I could see this being kind of a slow 24-10 win and a lot of burnt ownership in this game. So I'm into Aaron Jones a little bit, similar to Henry. I think he'll be behind those top guys in rostership. Not going to be playing a lot of Adams this week. I think he's going to get a lot of buzz, especially if Marshawn Lattimore misses this game. I think everyone's going to be all in on Adams. You're going to see a lot of Adams, Kamara, skinny stacks. So I'll probably be under the field on Adams. I'll be way under the field on this game. Then we've got Cleveland, Kansas City. This one's interesting to me. I mean, it's the highest total on the slate, right? And I feel like the Chiefs tend to sometimes get under-owned when they're not in like an absolute obvious smash spot, because every week, they're essentially going to be in the highest over-under game of the slate because of the Chiefs, and the market understands how great they are. So I'll probably work in some Kelsey, especially if I'm trying to get off of Adams and Hopkins and AJ Brown, who are going to be really high rostered top-end wide receivers. I think one of the ways you can diversify from that is Kelsey. But I could also see Kelsey and Kittle both being rostered a lot just because people are going to want to spend down to Callaway, to Elijah Moore, to Marvin Jones, to Rondale Moore. So I'm a little bit unsure where ownership is going to fall on Kelsey. I think that on the Brown side of this, if OBJ plays, I'm going to probably play some of him. Not just because he's OBJ and I always want to play OBJ, but also just because everybody's freaking out about this ACL. They're saying that, he might not play. I think if he does play, he's going to be a full go. I think that if they say that he is healthy enough to play, then he will be played. If they're not confident enough in his health, then, they're probably not going to just let him go out there and hurt himself in week one. I mean, what is a snap count going to do on a non-contact injury? Like they're going to snap count a wide receiver? No, I don't think they are. I think that he's either going to play a full complement of snaps because they're saying he's healthy, or he's going to be held out. And if he's healthy, then he'll be in my lineups because he's going to be probably like 3% owned in a game with the highest over-under on the slate. I'm all about that. So absolutely give me some OBJ. I think in this game is probably the one where I'm a little bit more into it, just based on I think that there's some opportunities to exploit the field, compared to Green Bay, New Orleans, and then Tennessee, Arizona. And the last game that I think is going to be super, super popular, a lot of sexy plays, is Atlanta, Philly. And I get why. I totally do. Kyle Pitts is just crazy cheap, right? He's $4,400 on DraftKings. He will be my cash game tight end. Really, really terrific play this week. And everyone knows it. So I don't know. It just seems like if everyone is going to be playing a rookie tight end as the chalk, that seems like a pretty easy chalk to fade. I think Ridley's also going to be really highly rostered. I'm kind of into Russell Gage. If you want to bet on this game in a way that nobody will roster anyone, it's probably Russell Gage this week. Well, on the Philly side, I want to play Goddard. Market sentiment on Goddard is so bad right now that I think a lot of people are going to play Ertz. People are going to play Smith. And I don't think anyone's going to play Goddard. He's still going to be involved, right? Like even if he disappoints us on a season-long perspective, he's still going to have games. I think he's still probably their number one red zone target. So I will play some Dallas Goedert. I would love to play Hurts, but I think he's going to come in with just crazy rostership. So I will play him a little bit. But what I really want to talk about on those games, and I will get to the question, Alex, in 1 second. If you are playing one of those 3 games, that is fine. But then you have to be active about the rest of your lineup, right? This is like a puzzle. DFS lineups, it's like creating a Tetris puzzle where, okay, if I'm going to take on a really highly projected play with a lot of ownership here, maybe you need to get a little bit more galaxy brain here. So if you're going to play Hurts, Pitts, Smith, you go, okay, well, I'm probably eating a lot of rostership there. Now am I going to work in someone else later in my lineup that's going to be able to flip the construction back to my favorite rostership wise? Question here from Alex. Do you feel like with the Chiefs game, it could go lower than the Bucs have it? I'm not sure. Probably. I mean, any game can go lower, right? I think this is what I would say I struggle with. Is really diving into the minutia of each individual game. Like, I prefer to have this high level strategy conversation. I think it's more useful overall about, okay, what do we do with the information that we do know, and how can we really be conscious of what we don't know? So could it go lower in the books? Yeah. Will it probably be high scoring? Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to try and be better at setting an over under than Vegas, right? This is why I play DFS and why I don't bet on over unders. Is because at the end of the day, I don't know. So sorry, I don't know. But what I'm trying to look at is my personal certainty, which is basically just, what you can model in, right? Over, under, pace, offensive efficiency, etc., versus how certain the market is, right? So in general, if the market is really certain that a game is going to go over, then I will just assume it goes under, because that's where I'm going to derive more benefit. It's not about me thinking a game will go under, right? I don't think anything. I don't know anything. It's just about me looking at, okay, this game is going to go over. That's what the market feels really confidently about. Then I will just play the under. And I'm just going to bank on the market being wrong, because even if the market is a little bit sharp, even if they're right 55% of the time, if 80% of people, are making a choice and they're right a little bit more than half, I want to be in the other 20, right? And I'm okay winning less often, because in tournament DFS, it's not really about how often you win. It's about how impactful your wins are. Okay. So with all of that said, that's that first slate of games. I need to catch my breath, because doing a solo podcast live, the amount of talking, it's tough. Stay in the chat, bring your questions. I'll be back in just 30 seconds. All right, now let's get into some of the games that I think are a little bit more interesting. Some games that I think are not going to be targeted all that much by players, and that I think have almost as good a chance of shooting out as those games that we just mentioned. The first one I want to talk about is Bills Steelers. I expect Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs to come in with a lot of rostership. They will have a lot of rostership all the time. It's Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. They should. But I think that more people are going to play Kyler Hopkins. I mean, look, if you gave me equal rostership, I would rather play Kyler Hopkins this week. They're playing against Tennessee instead of against the Steelers, right? I would totally rather do that. Thank you, Tom. Love you too, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. And with these Bills, right, I think that's going to keep ownership a little bit down. And I love teams like the Steelers for DFS, right? Absolutely love playing Steelers wide receivers DFS for a couple of reasons. Number one, their quarterback is never attractive to people, right? Big Ben, pretty low upside play most of the time. At least that's how people conceive of him, right? As a low upside play. And then you're not going to see a lot of people play the wide receivers because they don't want to play the quarterback. And then there's also 3 wide receivers that I think the market sees as generally equal, right? You have Deontay Johnson, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, and you have Chase Claypool. I wrote this week in my column, and I've been talking about this concept. I've been so hooked on this concept, my whole week of shows. The idea of inferior goods and normal goods. So in economics, an inferior good is any sort of asset that improves in value when the market conditions get worse, right? So if you think about toilet paper during the pandemic, right? Coronavirus hits, everything in the market, everything in the world is really bad, but everybody wants to go out and buy toilet paper because it's the one thing that you can't get anymore. That's an inferior good, right? Juju Smith-Schuster to me is an inferior good wide receiver. And that's not to say he is an inferior wide receiver, but it's like what kind of plays are best for Juju? It's going to be a lot of dump offs, short, right? So if there's not going to be big plays, if Big Ben's arm is totally dusted, right? That's probably good news for Juju, but it's bad news for the Steelers offense as a whole. And in turn, then it's bad news for the Bills offense from a fantasy perspective. So I don't really want to bet on the asset that benefits most if things go poorly. I want to bet on the asset that benefits most if things go well, and oftentimes can create things going well, right? So I want to bet on Chase Claypool. He's the explosive option in this offense. He's actually the cheapest of the 3 on DraftKings, but I don't think he'll be that much more rostered than the others. He's the guy who can have an 80-yard touchdown, right? That immediately puts the ball back in the hands of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. They go down and score. Now Claypool's going to get the ball again, and you just start this avalanche of awesome DFS fun and money because you have Claypool's getting points, and then the Bills are getting points, and it just goes back and forth. And that's when you're just exciting, and you're sitting there on the couch, eating your pizza, drinking your beer, and you're just counting your money. You're counting your money because Claypool scored an 80-yard touchdown. It sped the whole game up, and you're just getting an avalanche of happiness. That's what I want for you. I want you to have an avalanche of happiness. And so if you're playing this Bills stack, I'll be honest. I've already set my top tournament lineup this week, and it's going to be a Josh Allen Diggs stack, and I'm going to have Claypool as the bring back to that. I'm super excited about that, and I think it's a really sharp play this week, where I think you can get moderate rostership to the best offense in the league, or at least one of them, and I think you can get Claypool or Deontay. If you prefer Deontay, go Deontay. Even Juju. I mean, play anybody. Even Harris, actually, I think is a decent play. But Claypool is my favorite of those 4. And I think you can get him at a real reasonable rate. So I'm big into the Bills-Steelers game. 2 other games that interest me a lot. Colts-Seahawks. Similar idea. I think everybody is going to be open to playing the Seahawks side, but probably not as much as some of those others, right? Less than Arizona, less than Green Bay, less than the Chiefs, probably even less than the Bills. And that's because I think people fear the Colts defense a little bit. And they also just don't want to play any Colts. And if people don't want to play any Colts, then they're less likely to play the Seahawks. Xavier Rhodes is missing this game. I know I don't usually care about wide receiver cornerback matchups, but like that makes the Colts defense worse. So I think Metcalf and Lockett and Metcalf and Russ and Lockett and Russ, 2 of my favorite stacks this week. As for bring back, I think Pittman is the best one. Similar idea to Claypool. That's the guy with the big play upside, I think, in this offense. But I'm also pretty open to any Colt. Really, I think you can play Taylor this week. I think you can play Hines, maybe. Hines. Definitely play Pascal. I'm pretty open to playing Pascal. I mean, there's sort of 2 ideas of leverage that we'll talk about a lot on this show throughout the year. Is like price leverage versus performance leverage. And price leverage is when we just sort of take guys to be on similar constructions as others, but we sub in someone who's really not owned at all for someone who's owned a lot, right? So everybody's going to be playing these 3K wide receivers like Callaway and Marvin and Elijah Moore. Why not throw in Zach Pascal? There's no Hilton. Pascal's going to be playing, I think, as the number 2 wide receiver in this game. And yeah, why couldn't he get the touchdown instead of Michael Pittman? Matt says, just stacked the Colts Seahawks 30 minutes ago. Such an underrated game. I totally agree, Matt. Over under a 49. I think it's the 4th highest over under on the slate, and it's indoors with Russell Wilson. Quentin Nelson's healthy. Wentz is healthy. I mean, the only person in this game that's missing is T.Y. Hilton, who, I mean, come on. We're not in like 2015 anymore, right? And Xavier Rhodes, who's the guy who would be covering Metcalf. So that's good, right? So I think it's wheels up on this game. Michael says, Seattle at Indy stack. Russ, Lockett, and DK, and then bring it back with Pittman or Paris Campbell. Yep, totally agree. One thing about the Russ, DK, Lockett. So a lot of people ask, is it better to double stack or is it better to single stack? And let's discuss that right now, because I think that's a great example. Is this Russ, Lockett, DK? Should we only play Russ with one of them? Should we only play with both? Well, I don't think the double stacking is inherently good or bad. I think it depends on the prices, the players, and the contest that you're in. So if I was playing the $5 DK Millie, right, I am not going to be double stacking, because you pretty much have to flop the nuts to win a like 100,000 million person. Right, at the FanDuel tournament, I think this week has 1.3 million entries. Not a chance in hell I'm double stacking in that. Because you pretty much have to flop the nuts, right? Basically, you have to get all the highest scoring players. What are the chances that 2 of the 3 highest scoring wide receivers in the slate are in this same team, right? It's not that high just because of the touchdowns. Like, you probably need both these guys to score 2 touchdowns. And I mean, if one of them scores 2 touchdowns, how many more touchdowns are there going to be, right? It just makes it harder. It makes it a lot harder for you to be able to flop the nuts. So if you think about wide receivers on the same team and where they're correlated, people talk about correlation in a black and white term, right? Is it correlated? Yes. Is it correlated? No. Well, with 2 wide receivers on the same team, they are correlated actually positively at the median. But as you get towards the ceiling, I guess I should do it this way. There we go. As you get towards the ceiling, the correlation actually diverges. And that's because in general, for them to do well, it is correlated, because basically then you're just betting on the offense doing well. But for them to be legendary, for them to break the slate, isn't correlated, because you probably want one of them to score like 3 freaking touchdowns. And those are 3 touchdowns that the other guy can't catch. So long story short, if I was in like a 2,000 person field tournament, totally, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it, because there you only need to get 1 or 2 things right to win, right? So if the Seahawks score 35 points, probably doing really well with Russ, Lockett, DK. If it's a big field, I wouldn't. The other thing to take into account with double stack versus single stacking is just the price, right? So what does your payoff need to be? For instance, I'm more likely to do Russ, DK, Everett than I would be Russ, DK, Lockett, because if the idea is, okay, this offense is going to do really well, but Metcalf is the one who's going to get, 8 catches and 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, what does that leave for everybody else? Well, maybe a little bit less. Doesn't really matter for Gerald Everett, right? We don't need Gerald Everett to get 100 yards and 2 touchdowns to pay off being a punt tight end. If he gets 50 yards and a touchdown, that's fine. 50 yards and a touchdown from a punt tight end can totally make it in any lineup, right? If everything else aligns. So that's sort of my thoughts on the double stack, which I know is not your actual question, but I just thought it was an interesting jumping off point there. Maddie says, great call. Thank you. Also stacked Hawks Colts, my latest underdog battle royale team. Good luck. Let me know what you're going to do with all your money. Just, keep me in mind, right? Keep me in mind with all your money. Last game I want to talk about, Washington and the Chargers. I think I'm the only person on this game. I think it's just me. Everyone is really convinced that the Washington defense is good. I'm also convinced. My level of convincing is fairly low. There's no reason to think that they won't be good, except that we just don't really know who's good on defense. We never do. There's no evidence that shows that we should be able to predict with absolute certainty who's going to be good on defense. So if everyone's sure that the Washington defense is going to be good, that makes me think, okay, well, what if they're not? Or what if they're good, but they don't play well this week? Or what if they're good, but they're not so good that they're going to stop the Chargers offense, because Chargers offense is also really freaking good. People think the Chargers defense is going to be good. I actually have no idea why people are so sure the Chargers defense is going to be good. They weren't good last year. They had some injuries. They're getting guys back. Will they be better? I don't know. Maybe. Here's what we do know. We know that Justin Herbert's really good. We know that the Chargers and the football team were both among the fastest paced and most pass heavy teams in the league last year, neutral script. Only thing that's changed there is the Chargers coaching staff, of course. But I mean, if Herbert can handle a high octane offense last year, why would they change that? And if you ever heard Brandon Staley talk, I mean, he sounds like one of the most progressive defensive coaches I've ever heard. He's constantly talking about how you need to orient your defense and your offense from a pass-first direction. He said they're going to run their offense through Herbert. Comes from the Rams, which has been one of the fastest-paced teams in the league. I don't have any concerns about Brandon Staley at all. I think they're going to run a pretty fast-paced, high passing volume offense. And the best part is we get double benefit from injuries this game. Curtis Samuel out. Sorry, dude. Appreciate you. I actually love Curtis Samuel, but that means more targets potentially for McLaurin, more targets potentially for Logan Thomas. Means that you may be able to take a flyer on De'Ami Brown this week. He's probably going to get a lot of snaps. Maybe Adam Humphries. I mean, I don't really want to play Adam Humphries, but hey, if you do. And on the Chargers side, we got Austin Eckler. I mean, I think Eckler's playing. But if people are worried, I mean, please God, Ian Rappaport, please tweet on the morning that they're going to count Austin Eckler's snaps. That's all I want, because the second he tweets that out, Austin Eckler is going in all my lineups, because he is 0 for lifetime on snap count tweets. That's all I want out of the slate is for him to say yes, Austin Eckler's snaps can be managed this week. Absolutely love it. Michael, and this is exactly what I was going to get to. Michael says, I'm always playing McLaurin and DFS regardless of the opponent. Same with Keenan Allen. Both can be played as individual components without stacking. Yep, they totally can. So I'm not going to play Fitz in DFS, I don't think, this week. I will consider Herbert, but there's a lot of other quarterbacks I want. But what I'm going to be doing mostly in this game is skinny stacking. I think that all of these guys are going to have almost no rostership. So if I can play Eckler McLaurin or McLaurin Allen or Gibson Allen or, Logan Thomas Allen, Logan Thomas, Eckler, whatever, any combination of those five, maybe even throwing a Mike Williams or De'Ami Brown. That's what I want to do is skinny stacks with, I think, pretty premium players, a pretty low rostership, and that's going to allow me to absorb a little bit more chalk elsewhere. So, for instance, if I was going to play that Hurts, Devontae Smith, Kyle Pitts stack we talked about earlier, if I was going to play the Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Brown shell, well, let me put in Logan Thomas and Austin Eckler. Let me put in Keenan Allen and De'Ami Brown, right? Let me get those guys in. Now that really levels out my roster, gets me secondary correlation, and it makes me a little bit more unique. So those are games that I'm going to be in. If anyone has questions about other games, you can talk about other games. But there's so much content that goes in and talks about all of the games of the week that I don't really want to belabor it. I would prefer to sort of have these high-level conversations, these strategic conversations about leverage. How do we generate that, right? How do we build smart lineups with rostership in mind? And then, I want to play some fun games at the end. So I will be back once again in just 30 seconds, and we will go over a little bit of some leverage opportunities. Then we're going to get into my sneaky athlete of the week. And then finally, we're going to play GPP Roulette. All right, I'll see you in 30 seconds. All right, welcome back. Really quick, I am going to do this every week. We're going to talk about the leverage plays of the week, okay? One of the most important things for DFS players to understand in tournaments is the concept of leverage. Leverage means you picking a play that benefits from a higher owned play failing, right? And I sort of talked about it a little bit briefly earlier, but I really want to get into it here. So let's say Alvin Kamara, right? Alvin Kamara, everybody's rostering Alvin Kamara, okay? Who benefits, if Alvin Kamara doesn't score, right? On a given play worth a 10-yard line, and everyone that has Alvin Kamara is like, oh yes, give it to Alvin. Okay, it doesn't go to Alvin. Who does it go to? Maybe Adam Troutman, right? Everyone's playing Marvin Jones. Who benefits if Marvin Jones fails? Probably DJ Chark, right? DJ Chark is a really interesting DFS play this week. Why? Well, because no one wants to play him, because everyone hates him online, and everybody's playing Marvin Jones Jr. He's going to be like 20% rostered, okay? Why is he 20% rostered? Because he's a good play. Because Marvin Jones is a really good play this week. But he could also have 5 catches, 50 yards, and not a touchdown, because all the touchdowns they score could go to Chark or to Chenault, right? That's a really great leverage opportunity. So specifically, some of my favorite leverage opportunities this week. Number one is who I just said, DJ Chark / Laviska Chenault. Those two get off of Marvin Jones. Another one is Corey Davis off of Elijah Moore. AJ Green, who I mentioned earlier, to get off of Rondale Moore and DeAndre Hopkins. And then a last guy is Goddard in this game. I think he's sort of like double leverage in two ways. I think he's leveraged off of Smith, will be pretty chalky. Leveraged off of Ertz, who I think will probably be more rostered than Goddard. And then he's also not leverage off of Pitts, but there'll be so many people who play this game. And the people who do, a lot of them will have Pitts in their tight end slot, right? If you have Goddard, and then you don't, by definition, you don't have Pitts, I think it allows you to attack the same game, but flip your build a little bit to get some unique access. So Goddard's guy I really like this week. Chark is a guy that I think makes a lot of sense this week. Corey Davis and AJ Green. All a little bit gross, but that's fine. That's the way we do it. Okay, sneaky athlete of the week. For anyone that does not know, sneaky athlete is my own personal little brand term that I essentially talk about. Why do announcers always say, whenever there's a white guy that's doing something athletic, they always call him a sneaky athlete? Like if a black quarterback goes and scrambles out of the pocket, it's a first down. I was like, oh man, look at that, great athletic play. And then like Joe Burrow does that. They're like, man, Joe Burrow, sneaky athletic. It's like, oh, what? Why did he sneak up on you? I wonder why. Just never stop being funny to me. So basically, each week we have to come up with someone who's sneakily athletic. There could be a sneaky little DFS play this week. And this week, our sneaky athlete is Tyler Kroft. Tyler Kroft, who's down there at the minimum salary, playing for the Jets in the Jets-Panthers game that we've not talked about yet. That could be a game that's like pretty gross, but could sneakily shoot out. No good defenses in that game. And Tyler Kroft has had all of his competition fade away. Chris Herndon traded away. Kenny Yeboah released. Ryan Griffin has been just promoted off the practice squad, but the fact they ever put him on the practice squad shows what they think of Ryan Griffin. So give me Tyler Kroft. He's running a lot of routes, and he could easily catch a sneaky couple of touchdowns. Now let's do the main event here on No Free Squares. We're going to have a lot more fun graphics and stuff, by the way, but we're just getting launched. So this is a continually evolving production. We will have a lot more fun stuff for this, but for now, bear with me. It's the first time we're going to try and run through this. But we're going to play GPP Roulette. Here's how it works to play GPP Roulette. I'm going to spin a roulette wheel, okay? 1 to 36. I'm going to spin a roulette simulator. I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we go. We're going to get the little screen share going. Just give me 1 second here. And we're going to go with this little window. There we go. Money. All right, perfect. Here's our screen share of my beautiful roulette simulator. Oh shoot. I'm going to get my thing off. I apologize. As I said, we're working through this. There we go. So here's my beautiful roulette simulator. I'm going to spin it twice. Okay, we're going to spin it twice. Each of these numbers has been assigned to a player that you suggested to me through Twitter. So I went through and I just ordered whatever names you said. And you know, this is not people that say 36 names. I can always fill in the gaps, and I did it a couple times. I took your serious plays. So Josh, if you're watching, I did not include Mitchell Trubisky. Chase, if you're watching, I absolutely didn't include Jordan Wilkins in your crew of characters. Spinning it twice, going to get a name each time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a lineup in maximum 100 seconds. Okay, you can start the timers as soon as I finish spinning. We're going to have to build a legitimately smart GPP lineup. I will be playing this lineup in the $5 DraftKings Millie Maker every week. Wouldn't it be fun if a roulette wheel lineup? Got it. And the reason why I want to do this game is not just for fun. It's to talk you through sort of the process of building a lineup. And it's especially to sort of show how you really can play whoever the hell you want to. Okay, you can play whoever the hell you want to in your DraftKings lineups in tournaments. You just have to make it correlated. You have to make it make sense. You have to be within the salary cap guidelines. And ideally, you want to use some concepts of leverage, right? You have to. So as long as you're being cognizant of rostership, as long as you're being cognizant of correlation, play whatever the hell you want, right? We're going to build a winnable live lineup with two people who are put on a freaking roulette wheel. So here we go. We're going to get a little spin. We're going to spin once. And what do we get? 36. We got 36. Red 36. Let's see who we got. 36 is Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore. Chalky Rondale Moore. Okay, so Rondale Moore. Going to lock him in. Where is Rondale Moore? Let's go over to DraftKings. Lock in Rondale Moore here. Where the frick is Rondale Moore? All right, Rondale Moore, locked in. Okay. And then, spin one more time. $10 black. 10 black. All right, 10 black. So let's see who we got here. Zach Pascal. All right, so our lineup, and we're going to start the timer right away. We have to build a viable DraftKings lineup around Zach Pascal and Rondale Moore. Timer is going to start. I'm just as soon as I get my DraftKings screen share here ready to go. All right. Okay. Screen share is up and we're good. All right, let's do this. Okay, so we're plugging in Rondale. Add him in. Plugging in Pascal. Add him in. Okay, so first thing we want to look at is correlation. Okay, so we're already playing Zach Pascal. That immediately lends me to we're going to do a Russ stack because I don't really want to play the chalky Rondale Moore Kyler stack. So we're going to do Russell Wilson. Where's Russell Wilson? Here we go. Okay, and I'm going to just play Metcalf. I don't really have much time to fiddle with it. I'm going to play Metcalf. All right, perfect. Now we better do some freaking running backs. Nice thing is we have 2 exceedingly cheap wide receivers in our lineup, so we can spend way up. I'm going to put in the big dog, Derrick Henry. We get a little bit of correlation there with Rondale Moore. I think he's going to be one of the more under-owned elements of the slate. What do we got? Like 50 seconds here? 50 seconds. Okay, tight end. Let's get a tight end in here. What do we got? Average salary is $5,000. I think we can spend up. So I'm going to do Kittle in here, going in there against Detroit. And then that's going to leave us with one other running back spot and a flex spot and a freaking defense. Right now, I think we're a little bit high on rostership. So I would like someone who's not quite as owned. And I think that is going to be, let's do freaking Mike Davis. Let's just do that. It's going to be a high-owned game. I don't think people are going to play a lot of Davis. And then we can bring that back with, let's do, how much money do we have per person? We have a lot of money. We can do, you know what? We can go more expensive than Davis. Sorry. We're going to quickly tilt this. We're going to play Sanders. And then the wide receiver spot. This will allow me to play Gage. Too expensive? Too expensive. Who do we want a wide receiver? Someone give me someone in the chat, please. DST Broncos. I'm getting DST Broncos in the chat. Sure, why not? Why not DST Broncos? That allows me to have $3,900. We're going to pick a $3,900 wide receiver. We're over time. I apologize. $3,900. Who's the most? Yeah. Can't do green. Can't do green. Let's do. We're going to go up to. Oh man, these guys suck, don't they? These guys absolutely suck. Let's play Tyrell Williams because he correlates with Kittle. And then we're going to go down at defense and we're going to play, we'll play the Jaguars defense. And that's our lineup. All right, we're good. We've got to be clear, the GPP Roulette lineup is Russell Wilson stacked with DK Metcalf. Bring back Zach Pascal, Rondale Moore, and the big dog, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, George Kittle, Tyrell Williams, and the Jaguars DST. Is this a good lineup? Not really. Could this lineup win? Absolutely. And that's what we're going to find out later this week. That's the lineup in approximately 2 minutes off a roulette wheel. So thanks a lot for tuning in this week. Like I said, we are working out all of the different kinks the best that we can as we get through this. We're going to have more graphics. We're going to have more games. We're going to have guests on this. This will not just be me talking for 45 minutes at you the entire time. Might be for the first couple of weeks as I get my bearings. But please let me know on Twitter if you check this out. What did you like? What would you like to see more of on the show? What are some concepts that you'd love me to talk about? I'm happy to go into deep dive on strategy on anything, anything that people want, any concepts that you want to know. So thanks for hanging out in the chat with me. Thanks for giving me all the names for the roulette wheel on Twitter. We'll have a whole new roulette wheel again next week. And thanks for supporting myself and the channel. You can find me on Twitter, FF_RTDB. You can find the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, of course, throughout the week with the Fantasy Walkabout and with the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, and then with No Free Squares again next Saturday. Make sure to check out all the great content that we all have going on between myself, between Tom Tipple, FF, between Big Billy, and of course, Tom_Lee92, host of the Walkabout. Thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for bearing with me. I will see you again next week. And again, check out my my article if you want a little bit of a deeper dive into this in the written form called The Proto Principles. That's pinned on my page on Twitter for playerprofiler.com. Otherwise, have fun. Enjoy the frickin' games. We get football tomorrow, people. Absolutely enjoy it. Lap it up and have a good one.